Hi, boys and girls. Mrs. Blackburn here. We are ready for day 3 of our shared read with our star passage titled Simple Machines and Greater Things. Let's go ahead and begin. Our learning goal. Students will identify central idea and summarize the text. Success criteria. I can successfully identify the central idea, use text evidence to support my idea, and summarize the text. All right, so like I said, we will be using the star passage, Simple Machines and Greater Things, to work on our shared read today. We will reread the text first, identify the central idea, and then summarize a paragraph. So let's go ahead and begin with zooming in here so that we can practice doing our reading together. Remember, I'd like you to read along with me, and then later on the puzzle piece, you will record your reading this passage, the entire passage aloud for your teachers. Okay, so let's go ahead. Simple machines and greater things. Simple machines get a lot of work done. They save us a lot of effort and time. An understanding of simple machines provides people with the know-how to build great things. The Great Wall of China, the Egyptian pyramids, and the giant stone heads known as Moai on Easter Island were all constructed with simple tools. Lever. This simple machine reduces the amount of force needed to move an object. Consider this. The longer a handle a lever has, the less force is required to lift a heavy object. Of course, you have to move the lever handle a longer distance. The lever really works by trading force for distance. Wheel and axle. The invention of the wheel made life much easier for ancient workers. Imagine dragging stones that weigh over 2 tons, that's 2,000 pounds, up a hill to build a pyramid. Dragging a heavy load is hard because of friction. The stone's weight presses against the ground, causing resistance to push or pull. By lifting the weight onto a rolling log, friction is reduced. Making strong wheels that are connected by an axle reduces friction even more. Pushing or pulling a cart mounted on wheels requires far less effort than dragging a heavy load. It's no wonder that the heaviest equipment in the world rolls around on wheels. Inclined plane. Lifting heavy objects like refrigerators requires lots of force. Lifting a 250-pound refrigerator straight up is hard. Wouldn't it be easier to push that same weight up a ramp? Like the lever, a ramp gives us another trade-off. We have to move a load over a greater distance, but the work requires much less lifting force, and that's easier on the back. Wedge. A wedge is a useful device for splitting apart dense objects. A wedge makes use of the inclined plane. By hammering an inclined plane into a dense log, the hardest of logs can be split into smaller sticks. A worker with a wedge and a small hammer can split the mightiest of logs. A wedge works by changing the direction of the force. We apply force to a wedge with the hammer, and the slope of the wedge face pushes the log apart. Direction of force. Change in direction. Pulley. A pulley also makes work easier by changing the direction of force. A pulley attaches a rope or chain to a wheel and axle. By suspending a heavy load from above, a worker pulls down to lift an object up. This allows the object to be moved with less friction. Here's the best part, though. By adding more pulleys, the amount of force required to lift the weight is reduced. In fact, using 2 pulleys to lift an object requires half as much force. 3 pulleys attached to each other takes only 1/3 of the force to lift a load. Of course, there's a trade-off. Adding more pulleys means you have to pull the rope across a greater distance. Using less force to do the same amount of work is called mechanical advantage. Mechanical advantage is calculated as a ratio. A single pulley has an advantage of 1 to 1, no real advantage, while 2 pulleys has an advantage of 1 to 2. Complex machines. Complex machines combine simple machines. Your bicycle, for example, uses wheels and axles, no levers, the pedals and brake calipers. A car uses wheels and axles and pulleys to run the components of the engine and lots of nuts and bolts, spiraled, inclined planes. To hold everything together, nearly all of our mechanical work in the modern world is done with the help of complex machines. All right, so now we're done with our reading together. And what we're going to focus on today is something that we discussed in yesterday's lesson, but I want us to go over it again because there's more that we can look for. We are going to look for that central idea again. And this is always great practice. So central idea, if you remember, it's the big idea. And again, we're going to narrow that down, central idea, or the big idea of what the author wants us to take away or remember in a paragraph. So we're going to focus in on paragraph 6. Paragraph 6 is all about the pulley. So I'm going to point out something important to you. When we're looking for the central or idea, every paragraph will always have what we call a topic sentence, and the topic is what the author's writing about. So the first thing we want to do is locate that topic sentence, and then all the other sentences in that paragraph are going to be about that. So you can kind of think of it like a table. Okay, think of that like a table. Mrs. Blackburn isn't the best artist here, but think of it like a table. Okay, maybe a little longer legs there. A table. So if you think of your topic sentence going here, and then all of your supporting details are your legs. So you'd have your supporting detail here, a supporting detail here, supporting detail here, and a supporting detail here. And we know that paragraphs often have more than just 4 supporting details. But if we don't have these supporting details in our paragraphs, then the paragraph can't stand, it would fall apart. So just like a table, if the table didn't have the legs to support it, it would fall apart, it would fall down. So that's why it's so important. And it's important for us to understand that a paragraph has to have a topic sentence and then supporting details that would support it, or text evidence. So if we look at our paragraph about pulleys, the first sentence says, a pulley also makes work easier by changing the direction of force. Do we think that all of the other sentences support that idea? A pulley also makes work easier by changing the direction of force. So let's look at the second sentence. A pulley attaches a rope or chain to a wheel and axle. Is that about changing the direction of force? Is it explaining in all these other sentences about changing the direction of force and how the actual pulley works? Yes, it is. So a pulley also makes work easier by changing the direction of force is actually the topic sentence, what this paragraph is all about. And you can see that all of the other sentences are supporting this idea. So this is going to be the central idea. And so what we'd want to write for our central idea would be a pulley adds mechanical advantage by by what? What's the pulley do? It changes what's the pulley do? And it gives us a really nice diagram on this page too. And that's why the text features are so important here. So if you can see the pulley, these are the pulleys, little wheels here, right? And instead of just pulling something and trying to lift something heavy here, you can see where the pulley actually changes the direction of the force. So if you're pulling the rope down this way, it's a lot easier to lift this something that's really heavy over here, this load. So the central idea is that a pulley adds mechanical advantage because it changes the direction of the force, right? So that's the central idea that the author's trying to get across now. So we're going to move on now to a summary. So if that's the central idea that the author's trying to get across, we definitely would want to keep that in our summary. However, with the summary, we're probably going to want to add a key detail, and sometimes two, to this. So a pulley makes work easier by changing the direction of force, but we'd also want to add a little bit to that. So let's look at this and see if there's any key details that we would want to really pull out of here. We've got, this allows the object to be moved with less friction. This says, here's the best part. Now that would be something that may help us think, hey, that's really important if it says here's the best part, the author's saying. It says, by adding more pulleys, the amount of force required to lift the weight is reduced. In fact, using 2 pulleys to lift an object requires half as much force. 3 pulleys attached to each other takes only 1/3 of the force to lift a load. Okay, so if it says here's the best part, do you think that that's something important we'd want to include in our summary? Absolutely. So if we're going to write a summary, we'd want to take the central idea and then we'd want to add to that, we'd want to add those key details. So we could say in a summary, so this is central idea, and then for the summary, I have my table in the middle of this, we'd want to say a pulley adds mechanical advantage by changing, this is why you reread what you write, changing the direction of force, and then you say more pulleys equals less force required to lift an object. So let's reread what our summary says. A pulley adds mechanical advantage by changing the direction of force. More pulleys equals less force required to lift an object. So that would be a fantastic summary of that entire paragraph, using the central idea and then adding the key detail from that paragraph. Okay, it's short, it's to the point, but has the key detail in there as well. All right, I hope that makes more sense. Remember, a table to get your central idea in a paragraph, you have your topic sentence and then you have supporting details. Your supporting details are what help hold the paragraph all together, just like a table. You can't have a table with only 3 legs. You can't have a table with only 2 legs and fall apart. Paragraph's the same thing. You have to have the supporting details to hold everything together and hold everything up. All right, so let's go ahead and look at what we will be doing tomorrow. On day 4, I can successfully read the star passage and eliminate wrong answers in the questions. And in conclusion for today, amazing readers read text multiple times. They also use text evidence to identify the central idea and summarize what they have read. Why do we do this? So I will become a more fluent reader and have a better understanding of what I have read. All right. So I hope you enjoyed today's lesson. I hope that the passage is becoming better and easier for you to read. Don't forget you do have a puzzle piece to complete after this lesson and video. And if you have any questions, reach out to your teachers.